Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley here. Welcome to my craft room. I am creating today with some brand new products from Erin Lee Creative, so let's get to it. So here is a look at some of the products that Erin has sent me from Erin Lee Creative. Adorable products. There are some breakfast themed things like this little waffle die, and then there's a little skillet with the little sunny side up egg, which, by the way, I like my eggs over easy. So just so you know, bacon, one of my favorites. And then these adorable sentiments that coordinate. I love you a waffle lot, smile. Always look on the sunny side up. I think these are so much fun, and I'm going to be creating with these today, but I also want to show you some of the other products that Erin has sent me. Look at this adorable shoe die. There's the various elements that you can use to create the lace loop holes. I don't know what those are exactly called, but the soles. And then there are, of course, some of the florals that are coming out of the top, and that coordinates beautifully with the Walk by Faith die, which I think is such a fun way to bring in kind of a faith-based element. Speaking of faith-based elements, this Faith Over Fear stamp set, I absolutely love it, and I think I want to create a card with this one here because this is one of my favorite songs. It's from Goodness of God. It says, all my life you have been faithful, and all my life you have been so, so good. But there's some other sentiments on here that are really fun and encouraging to use on card projects. There is also this adorable oval element die with a pretty little bow on it and this hot foil background. Today we are going to focus on the waffles and the breakfast elements, but I will be creating something with these other products soon. So I'm going to start, I think, with the waffle, and I may just cut several elements all at once and get them ready to go. I'm going to start with this vanilla cream colored cardstock, and I'm going to cut both the solid element as well as the top of the waffle, or kind of that, you know, waffle pattern, for lack of a better word. I'm also going to die cut this little butter piece with that as well. I will add probably a little bit of ink blending to differentiate between some of the layers. I'm going to run that through my Anna Griffin Empress machine, and I believe I would like to cut a couple layers of this waffle pattern for the top to kind of give it a little extra dimension. Does anybody ever do this? Do you just smack your die on your work surface to get it all out? Makes it a lot easier. So I'll have my butter pieces here. It's meant to kind of layer up to add that dimensional effect. So I'll put that to the side, and then I will die cut another. I'm gonna get all these additional pieces out of the die, because if you don't, it can affect the cutting of the next image. So I'm just going to make sure I have all those inner pieces out and run this through again. And for good measure, I'm just gonna die cut one more. So now I have 3 of these waffle pattern layers, and I'm going to work on the syrup. I am going to die cut the syrup a couple of times. Now, the syrup is a little different because it's meant to create indentation, but not die cut out those portions out of the center. And that's really kind of cool because it then looks like it's kind of seeping into the top of the waffle. So I'll show you what that looks like here. Just kind of pop that out. So you can see that pattern in the top of that syrup piece. Now, because I like extra dimension, I'm going to go ahead and die cut this a second time. And I have my second piece there. Now I'm going to set all of my die pieces aside just to where I hopefully don't lose them. And for the waffle piece, I am going to see if I can just figure out how these line up, because they are not exactly the same, I don't believe. So I'm just going to turn these until I figure out how they line up. Okay, that looks like it lines up there. That looks like it lines up there. So when I glue those all together, I'll make sure that I line those up nicely. And then this is kind of designed to offset just a little. So I'm gonna grab some ink and add a little bit of inking to these to look like a toaster waffle. Now I am going to use my ultra sticky grid mat here. It's actually not a grid mat, but ultra sticky mat to kind of hold this die cut down as I'm doing a little bit of the inking. And I'm using just a little bit of wheat ink, just kind of a brown ink. I kind of want it to be a little warmer, so I'm going to actually grab nutmeg instead. So that wheat felt kind of a little neutral. It didn't have quite enough warmth in it. And so I'm coming in with nutmeg, and this might be a little stronger than I wanted. So I'm just trying to come in with a soft hand, but I wanted it to have a little more of a kind of red tone. And if it looks a little burnt, that's okay, because that's how things tend to go around my house. So we'll get just some of that on there. I haven't covered the entire thing. And then I think around the edge of one of these sides, I'll probably just add a little bit of color. I could have probably used maybe a yellow color on this as well, on this cardstock, but I'm just gonna do it along one edge. I'm gonna take this and wipe up some of the extra ink here. And I will take one of the syrup pieces and add a little bit of shading to the edge of that. Now, if you don't love to do the ink blending thing, you could also use some alcohol-based markers to add a little bit of shadow to this. But basically, I want to create a darker edge on this, so that looks like it's kind of curving down as it sits on there. So I'm just mainly going around the edge, and I'm trying not to hit the center of that at all. And I can pop that off of there, wipe up my mat, and then I will take my butter, place that here, and I am going to use a warm yellow for this. So I chose Honeycomb. I'm not really sure what side I want this to be on. This might look a little like some fake butter. Maybe some margarine. It's got some food coloring in it. And I'm gonna pop these off. Okay, so now it's time to kind of get some of these glued together. So I am going to take some liquid glue, maybe. Oh, that's a lot of liquid glue. That was a lot of liquid glue. Okay, crisis averted. We can make this okay. I am going to just stack that up, and then I'll add my little block on top there. And for this one, I think it's designed to kind of be like this, and I may have ink blended the wrong edge, but that's okay. We'll make it work. I think this is designed to kind of fit on there just like that, to look like a pat of butter. Is it a pat of butter or is it a pad of butter? That'll go on there. And then we will stack up all of these elements. So I will probably start with a thin line around the outside edge and then hit some of these middle things, because if you stack up die cuts but you don't have this center adhered, it can kind of pop up. So you just kind of want to hit especially those portions where they kind of overlap, and this is not taking long at all. Then I will take this and let's see how it lines up I believe it lines up this way. Perfect. And I'll just make sure I slide it into place correctly. And I will allow that to kind of, it looks like I maybe rotated it a little bit wrong, but okay. And now I'm going to add liquid glue to the top of this one. Go around the edge and then on those crossbars as well. So now that I have that, I'm actually going to find, I think maybe this way. There we go. And I have glue all over my surface now, so I'm just going to wipe that up so that I don't get it on anything else, and I will place my block over that while it dries. Now my sentiment is really an opportunity to bring some other colors into this color combination because we have kind of a more neutral color combination going on. So I've grabbed this I Love You, a Waffle Lot sentiment, and this piece of watermelon cardstock. And this particular piece of cardstock is one that my husband used, which is why there is something die cut out of the very center of it. If you didn't catch my husband card challenge live, then you should go back and watch it because Mr. Glitter did such an amazing job recreating a card that I created. But I'm going to place this into my Misty stamping tool, and I am going to position this kind of just like right along the bottom, making sure that I get this pressed in there. It kind of feels like my grip mat needs to be cleaned, so it doesn't feel like my paper is adhering really well to the grip mat. And I think for this, what I'm going to do is do some embossing. So I'm gonna prep the surface of my cardstock with a little bit of powder tool, and I'll use some Versamark ink to stamp this onto this watermelon cardstock. And once I have that stamped, I will remove this and I will add some white embossing powder to this. I like a super fine detail embossing powder for a sentiment. So today I'm using the Wow Detail Opaque White powder. And I'm just going to make sure that I have plenty of coverage on that stamped sentiment. And I'll grab my heat tool and allow it to heat up and then melt this powder. So once I've heat set that, I'm going to make sure that I give it just a second to dry or to actually set up and cool. And then to remove the extra powder that's on the surface of my cardstock, I'm just going to take a dry cloth and just kind of dust that away. I'll trim this down using my mini trimmer here, and I'm just going to kind of look and eyeball this a little bit, trim a little off the bottom. Then I'll rotate it and trim off to the area that I want. I don't have anything to kind of butt it up against up here, so I'm just making sure that my cardstock looks even inside of the trimmer, and then I'll trim that down. And I think this card's gonna be a really simple card, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But one of the things I love about this particular card is I know oftentimes we are looking for masculine cards, and I think these fun elements that Erin Lee has created with the kind of breakfast elements are a great way to create masculine cards, especially like I love you cards and something like that, because we all know that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. And so I just think that with the flirty kind of playful sentiments that she's included in this breakfast sentiment stamp set and the imagery of the breakfast items, I think it's a fun way to just kind of create a masculine card. So I'm gluing those stacked up layers onto the base of the waffle, and I've allowed it to offset just a little bit there. And I will place a block on that while it dries. And then I am going to add some liquid glue to the back of my syrup piece. Now, eventually this syrup piece is going to get a glossy coating so that it looks like real syrup on the top of there. And I'm just going to kind of position this where it kind of lines up with some of the openings. You can see how the pressed area kind of lines up with the openings of the waffle pattern beneath. So I'll do that. And for my butter piece, I want to add that on with some foam adhesive to give it a little more dimension, because butter would sit a little higher off of the waffle. And I may not add this on until I figure out how I'm going to do my syrup. There's a couple options. I'll probably end up with glossy accents, but if you wanted to, you could definitely do kind of like a clear embossing powder over this to give it that shiny effect. Now I'm also going to trim this down at an angle here, and I will trim right straight down on that side so that I have a little bit of an angled sentiment. And you can see how, as I'm building this card, I'm probably gonna wanna make sure that I do my glossy accents layer over that syrup portion before I add any of this on. This will also go onto the waffle with a little bit of foam adhesive. So I'll trim that down now and make sure that I put that on the back of this sentiment strip so that it's all ready to go. And for my foam adhesive, I'm just using my own kind of DIY foam adhesive. Recently, I've just been finding that most pleasing to me. So I'm using that, and I'll place that right on the back of there and trim down the excess so that's ready to go. Isn't that adorable? I think that is so cute. My kids would really like this card too, because they've always been into waffles, and their dad made them waffles a lot of Saturdays when they were growing up. So I have trimmed down a piece of Tidepool cardstock to 3.5 by 4 3/4 inches. And I have this little gingham stamp here that I thought would make a cute kind of diner type background for this little waffle. When I was young, my grandma owned a little breakfast place called the Woodlake Outpost, and that was actually one of my first jobs, was waiting tables there. And this kind of just brought back some memories of that right there. So I thought this gingham kind of breakfast cafe vibe would be really fun with this waffle. I'm gonna ink that up in the Tidepool ink so it's a tone on tone, and stamp that onto this cardstock. I'm just going to use a baby wipe to clean this up. And then I have this kind of adorable scene coming together with all of this breakfast theme, which I think is fun. So I'm gonna go ahead and take some foam adhesive and place it on the back of my waffle here. And I can remove the backer, and then I'll place that on there. Then I'm going to add my glossy accents so that can start drying kind of on my card front, allowing just that edge to kind of hang over. Then I'm going to grab this glossy accents, and this is one of those long lost kind of embellishments. It's super easy to do, but it creates a lot of dimension and shine on your elements. I do like to make sure I get it started kind of on a scrap piece of cardstock, especially if I have not used it in a while. And that just kind of prevents me from getting a big, you know, burp of the bottle onto my card project. So I'm going around the outside first, and I'm adding this layer of glossy accents, and this, it is going to take quite a while to dry, so we may have to come back to this card in a few hours, maybe even tomorrow, to finish kind of assembling all of it together. Once I get the entire area covered, I like to use the nozzle of the glossy accents to kind of just spread it out. And then if there's a little bubble in there, I kind of move it to the side and see if I can get it to pop. And then I'm going to allow this to dry and we'll finish assembling. So while my other card is setting up, while that glossy accents is drying, I thought I would create a second card featuring the little frying pan and the egg and the bacon. I thought this would be a really adorable counterpart to our waffle card. So I'm just grabbing all of my dies off the backer sheet, and then I'll start doing my die cutting. Now for this card, I thought I would use this really beautiful sunflower color for the yolk. And then I have some brown for my bacon. And instead of using like a harsh black for the frying pan, I thought I would use this neutral mushroom color. And when I'm doing several elements that I need to die cut, I like to cut the papers down to little scraps and then kind of run them through my die cut machine all at once. So I'll start with my frying pan. I have my strip of bacon here, which by the way, one strip, never enough. And none of that turkey bacon. That is not my jam. I'd rather just honestly not eat bacon if it's gonna be turkey bacon. So that's just my own opinion. Doesn't mean you're wrong if you do that, but kind of, yeah. So once I get them all on here, I'll run this through my die cut machine. And then I have all of my pieces ready to go. Just pop them out of their dies and set them aside. So I think I'll just start assembling these pieces. Many times when I have kind of some smaller pieces like this and I know they need to be assembled, I'll start with assembling them so that I don't have to worry about losing them. It's like if you have small die cuts hanging around your work surface, it's very easy to lose them. So I'll just start by kind of positioning them where they need to go. Looks like this needs to rotate. My stomach is growling. I haven't eaten yet today. So sorry if you could hear that. And just making sure I have them kind of positioned correctly on the bacon. Are you an extra crispy bacon kind of person, or do you like it less crispy? I'm definitely a crispy bacon girl. And I'm a fan. I mean, let's just be real. I'm a fan of bacon. So all this is going to go inside the frying pan. That's how I envision it, but I do want my yolk raised up. So I'm going to do that. And I'm not going to put it in the center of my egg because I feel like every time I crack an egg, it's never quite in the center. So I'll put it over kind of towards the side. And then I'll probably also use some foam adhesive to adhere the egg inside of the frying pan. So I'll just trim that down, place it on the back, and add it in to my frying pan. Now honestly, I'm not great at cooking breakfast. It's just not my jam. I'm trying to figure out how I want this on my card actually. So I've for sure never cooked eggs and bacon in the same pan all at once, but maybe you have. Are you talented? Can you do that kind of thing? I don't think I would try it. We actually have been cooking our bacon in the oven recently when we have cooked bacon. So I'm just gonna slide the bacon kind of underneath the egg. And I may put this on my card front kind of at an angle. Now for this card, I thought it would be fun to kind of echo the sunny side up and use this always look on the sunny side up sentiment. So I'm aligning that into my Misty stamping tool. I'm going to stamp it onto the sunflower cardstock and then use the sunflower ink to ink it up. So it'll be a tone on tone situation here. I'll just ink that up. Ooh, this one's juicy. And I'll stamp that onto my cardstock. Just press that there. Ooh, it's too juicy. too juicy. So let's just trim this off and try it again. Okay, so we'll place that back in there. And this time we will be a little more ginger with our inking so that we're not pressing it and squishing it. In fact, you know what? It's a good idea because I probably did squish it onto the sides the first time I inked it. I'm gonna just wipe it off with a dry cloth. I'm gonna re-ink, but this time, again, just use a light tapping motion. And then I'll stamp it onto my cardstock with gentle pressure. Now I can always re-stamp if I need to, but again, I'm getting a little bit too much inked. So this time I'm just grabbing my ink cube and we'll see if we get a better stamped sentiment with that. So let's see what we get. Oh yeah, that one looks a little bit better. So we'll take that and we'll trim it down. We'll just line that up and trim across the top. And then for the bottom, I'm going to align this with the 1/4 inch line. And what I'll do, actually just slightly on the other side of the 1/4 inch line, making sure it's all straight. I'm gonna trim and cut all the way up to where the descender is on that P. And then I'll pick up my blade and kind of skip over it and go to the other side and trim the rest of the way. So you can see I have my cut line from here to here and then from here all the way to the end. And I will grab some detail scissors to just do kind of the little fussy cut around the bottom of this P here. Just finish that cut up. Okay, so I am going to remove the backer from this foam adhesive and I will place it onto my little frying pan. I'm kind of guessing at the angle and that may come back to bite me, but I think I'll kind of get it right in there and then maybe, yeah, I think that'll work just like that. Now I may need to add kind of another layer of foam adhesive to the side because I already have some foam adhesive on the back of my frying pan. So I'll just trim down another little strip and place it where it needs a couple layers of the foam adhesive to kind of bring it up even so it doesn't sag on the sides. So we'll just do it just like that and add a second layer there and a second layer here. Okay, so for the pattern, I've grabbed this quilted pattern background and I'm just going to die cut that right into the piece of Tidepool cardstock that I prepared. This piece of Tidepool cardstock is the same size as my previous card, so it's 3.5 by 4 3/4. And I thought we would bring in kind of that tablecloth feel again with the quilted background here. Okay, so now that I kind of have everything figured out where I want it, I'm going to remove the backer off of the foam adhesive. I'm going to place this onto my card front at an angle. So you may kind of figure out that we're using the similar layout on both cards here, but they're gonna look different still, even though we've kind of grouped things in the same areas. And I think that's kind of fun to do. If you find something that works, there's no harm in using it again. And I think I will just have this heart somewhere in here, maybe on some foam adhesive again. Okay, before I add glossy accents onto this card, because I do want to do that, I am going to add some foam adhesive to the back of this card front. I'll just trim that down, place it there. Okay, so now I have a piece of cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 11, or I'm sorry, yes, 4 1/4 by 11 inches, and I'm scoring it at 5.5 inches to create a top folding A2 size card. This will go on the front there. So I'm just going to remove the backer of the foam adhesive and place this right in the center of my card base. Okay, so I got that positioned there, and then I am going to finish off the card by adding some glossy accents. And what I think I'm going to do is cover the yolk of this egg real quick. I'm probably not going to put quite as thick of a layer as I did on the syrup of my previous card. And then I'm going to add some glossy accents to the heart as well. That will kind of finish that card up. Isn't that adorable? I think this is just such a fun masculine card, and when that dries up, it'll all dry up clear and give it lots of dimension and shine. Okay, so I am back a couple days later, and I have now my fully dried syrup on top of my waffle. I think that is so adorable. I did have like a little bit of curling on the waffle, so I just gently kind of worked that out by kind of just folding it back. I don't know if you can see that. But I love how the glossy accents settled into the little indentations on the syrup, and you're able to kind of see that effect there. So I think that's so fun. I'm going to go ahead and just finish up assembling this card. So I have some foam adhesive on the back of my sentiment here. Just gonna kind of put that there at an angle. And I'm trying to decide, I don't necessarily want to match the angle of the checkered pattern. I kind of want this angle to line up with the edge of my card there. So I'll just place that down, and then I'll need another little support of some foam adhesive on that side. So I'll just snip down a little piece and tuck it in with a pair of tweezers, just like that, just to kind of bring everything even. And then I already have my foam adhesive on the back of my little pat of butter here. And I'll just kind of tuck that maybe in there as well. I don't know if I want it there or more centered with the syrup, but I kind of don't want to cover up too much of the syrup. Oh, it looks cute there. Okay, we'll do it like that. And then I will just take this entire thing. I'm going to add some foam adhesive to the back. I have a panel of foam adhesive. I create these myself. And I'm just going to stick it on the back of my card front here. It's going to give it some nice heft and weight. Then I will remove this and place it onto my card front. So just making sure I get everything kind of lined up there. And then place it onto my card front. And look at that. Isn't that adorable? I love this so much. So here is a look at both cards that I created today using some brand new products from Erin Lee Creative. I think these are so much fun, perfect for creating masculine cards and cards for a lot of different occasions. You can see they have a similar layout and they have some similar elements, but they're still very different cards. I love how these turned out. Be sure to check out the Instagram hop that's happening today over on Instagram to celebrate this brand new release from Erin Lee Creative. I'm Carissa Wiley. Thanks for joining me here. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe and turn on the notifications here on my YouTube channel so you don't miss any of my card making and paper crafting video tutorials. Thanks again, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.